World powers are scheduled to meet in New York on Friday to discuss the peace process in Syria. In advance of that meeting, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, trying to narrow their differences over the issue. Kerry said Russia and the United States have found common ground. Julia Lerbova has the details.
Moscow and Washington's views on the situation in Syria are similar, according to U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Tuesday. The talks at the Kremlin saw no major breakthrough, but Kerry said the two sides found common ground on which opposition groups should participate in Syrian peace talks.
We've
agreed to continue work, which is already at a rather advanced stage. The work on creating one list of terrorist organizations and assisting the United Nations in forming a representative opposition delegation, which would be ready to hold constructive talks with the Syrian government delegation, within principles agreed by members of the International Group for Support of Syria.
Kerry said he and President Putin agreed on a number of critical issues, especially as it concerns ISIL, which Kerry referred to using the alternative term Daesh.
We talked about the areas of our operations and theirs, and he was very much accommodating in his notion that we need to make certain that our militaries are talking in order to make sure there is a complete deconfliction. We obviously agreed that Daesh poses a threat to all of us.
Kerry also said he told Putin that the U.S. is concerned Russia is bombing moderate opposition groups in Syria. Russia views most of groups opposing Bashar al-Assad as terrorists. His future in Syria continues to divide Washington and Moscow.
Bashar al-Assad's fate is still remaining one of the key points of disagreement. And the other point of disagreement is the question of the coalition. In fact, we now have three coalitions, and there is confirmation from the U.S. side that they don't see a possibility to create a joint one coalition for Syria and Iraq.
Sergei Lavrov confirmed that a meeting of world powers to discuss Syria will proceed in New York on Friday. A resolution on Syria for the UN Security Council is expected to follow that meeting. This was the first meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry since Russia began its bombing campaign in Syria in September. And while some positive signals came from both sides here in Moscow, it remains to be seen when or if any new cooperation takes place where it matters on the ground in Syria and Ukraine. Julia Lyubova, CCTV, Moscow.